Starting off a sales call in today's environment is, in my opinion, one of the most important parts of a sales call for multiple different reasons. Number one, pretty much since COVID, when you look at what people did for 18 months, they were at home, they were on their phone all day long. A lot of people were clicking things, entering things. They started getting tons of DMs, people calling out. They booked sales calls. And if we look over the industry the past 10 years, you also have a lot of people that have been in the online space or hiring people in the online space as well. They have taken tons of sales calls. We are marketed to like 50 to 70,000 times a day. We oftentimes are constantly being sold to, and therefore we are very programmed to react certain ways. We've taught ourselves how to handle certain situations. And I'm going to give an example. Like you walk into a Walmart and the greeter is there. Hey, how you doing? You need help with anything? Your initial reaction always is, nope, I'm good. And then you walk in, you're about 100 feet in, and you start looking for what you're doing. You start walking down an aisle. Then you see an employee, and that employee, you go, hey, I'm looking for this. Even though the moment you walked in the door, you knew what you were looking for, you had no idea where it was. The first person to offer help, you said no to because you were trained. It's the same thing. Lots of times when I'm working with sales individuals at the very beginning, some people, especially solopreneurs or people may have a small team, some individuals have a very negative view when it comes down to sales. They actually think like used car salesmen, snake oil salesmen, sales feels, oh, it's so gross. It's you're manipulating people. Maybe you're taught a script that felt gross to you, and every single call you absolutely hated for multiple different reasons. Maybe it was out of alignment of who you are, how you communicate, what you believe. Maybe you felt like it was just emotional manipulation. Maybe you felt like you were asking questions to try to get someone to break down and cry, and like, I just need you. Or maybe you were trying that all the questions you felt like were manipulating them, almost trapping them into a box that they can't say that you feel, or that the script is supposed to get them in a box that says, well, I need to do this. I have to, right? To save my life or whatever it may be. And a lot of that can feel really gross to a lot of people. And especially if you're on the other end, the reason why you think it feels gross from a sales perspective, because you've also probably been on the other end and you felt gross and didn't buy. Or when you did buy, you immediately regretted it and probably asked for a refund. Or if you couldn't get a refund, it put a bad taste in your mouth to never let that happen again. The majority of people you talk to, they've had all of those same situations you've had in their life. They've talked to a salesman where they bought something, they felt manipulated, and they hated that. They bought something that they regretted later, and they hate the salesman for it. Other times you've been at places and a salesman was just super sleazy, rubbed you the wrong way, made your skin crawl, and you run like the wind from those people. And so every time someone shows up to a sales call with you, what type of professional are you actually on the phone in that sales moment, right? Because everyone, elephant in the room, you're jumping on a call. It's going to be sales. Are they coming in comfortable? Are they coming in uncomfortable? Are they coming in clear of what the conversation is going to be about? Are they hesitant to give you any information because they don't want to be sold to? Because truthfully, everyone loves to buy, but nobody loves to be sold to. And that's a cliche phrase that I really believe a lot, where if someone's jumping on a sales call with you, they have a problem that they're trying to solve. Now, they might be the wrong person and in the wrong place because you're not a good fit. They might be the right person, but feel like they're in the wrong place or not sure if they're in the right place. We want to make sure that when we're talking to the right person, they know they're in the right place and have a conversation that helps them make the right decision to get them out of that. That's my firm belief is my every person I talk to, I want to help them make out a decision in that moment that helps move their life forward. If I do that correctly and help them make that best decision for themselves, then when I offer a proposal, I know they've already said yes to that change, that transformation, that outcome. Now, if everything to that point was done correctly from why they're here to the conversation, then more likely than not that I will be able to showcase that I'm the perfect fit and it's a yes moving forward and buying your product or service. And that's what's really key. Now, it's not all the time that no, my that product that you're selling isn't the perfect fit for somebody. And I'm a firm believer, and there have been multiple agencies I've done sales for that the owners loved me doing sales call for them for multiple different reasons. With what we're talking about right now was if I knew someone wasn't a fit, even though they wanted to buy, I would not sell them because I knew they wouldn't get the result in the back end or the fulfillment to make it successful was going to be way harder than what that person needed. Um, and so you have to have a big discussion there to really build trust, authority. But you also have enough. The other part of going through questions, you have to understand this person in front of you enough to even say, hey, yes, my solution's perfect for you. I'm going to give a pretty easy example. If you're on the East Coast right now and you're going to the West Coast, now there's a lot of ways you can get there. You could walk, you could bike, jump on a car, you could jump on a plane, you could take a helicopter, a lot of different ways to get there, right? So let's say you come to me and you're on the East Coast and you're looking at getting to the West Coast. And I help people do that. Now, what you're looking for actually is an airplane. But I try to sell you a car you're not going to buy because that's not what you're looking for. And if someone was in the East Coast trying to get to the West Coast because a family member was in the hospital and you need to get there as fast as possible, I would actually be doing them a complete disservice by selling them a car because they wouldn't get there quick enough. What's the quicker, better way? Getting an airplane. Hey, I can help you, but I sell cars. I don't sell airplane tickets. So I would suggest you hop on your phone, you book an airline ticket, and use that. So that person decided to make a change and get from the East Coast to the West Coast because of their life situation. But if I sold them a car, that would be unethical of me doing that. Now, the other thing is if you're on the East Coast to the West Coast and you come to me, time doesn't really matter, and I sell you a boat. Are you going to get from the East Coast to the West Coast? No, because there's no river that takes you from the East Coast to the West Coast. So if I tried to sell you a boat, not only would that be unethical, but that would be downright, really, pardon my language here, really fucking shitty to do. And a lot of people have bought a boat and then realized, oh my gosh, this boat isn't what I needed at all. Now it's a vehicle, but it's not the vehicle I needed. And so that's a really important thing to look at. Every person that shows up, they've all had really, really bad experiences, which is why when I go through a sales process with people, yes, I learned from a script and I've built off tons of different styles of scripts. I've read a ton of different books on sales, and there are a ton of ways of making a sales. There's really no right way or wrong way. It's just the correct way for that person and who you are. One of the things when I'm coaching clients on sales, one thing that I repeatedly tell them is don't try to become me. Now, that's one thing we see in the online space a lot. You have people that are trying to become the sales coach talk like them, act like them, and it's doesn't work. It fails drastically because it's not you. And on a sales call, you can't wear that mask the whole time. And therefore, once you step away from that mask, it's going to subconsciously trigger something in someone's brain. Hey, this person was acting this way, and all of a sudden, boom, it's a switch. Now they're acting this way. There's something not right here. You can lose trust subconsciously through people really, really quick. So you need to be you, understand a script, but each line of that script, understand the framework of what it's trying to do, what the end goal. So every question you ask, what is the goal of me asking this question? Where am I leading a person by asking that question? Right. And a black and white example, if you and I are in a car and I'm driving the car, you're sitting next to me, we pull up to a stop sign. I can ask you three questions. Should we go left? Should we go straight? Or should we go right? Whatever your answer is, it's going to lead us on a different GPS coordinate. It's going to lead us to a different place. Not that we can't reroute and get back to where we're headed, but the point of this situation is understanding the power of a question. Because if I get to a position on a sales call, I have choices of what I want to ask somebody. And I have to understand, if I ask you, should we go left, should we go straight, or should we go right? That your answer is going to lead the conversation somewhere else. I have to then know why I'm asking you a certain question, where actually that's going to go. So I know where I'm going to be continuing to lead you, which is as we go through more videos and understand each section of a sales call and each part of getting the understanding of the person in front of you. Have they made a commitment to change? What have they tried? Do they actually view you as a potential solution? And why is that? What are they actually looking for? Are they looking for a car or a plane ticket? Do they think what I'm selling actually going to get them there? Hey, what other options are out there? Am I the ideal fit in your mind? Not just on what I'm offering. You can go buy cars from a lot of people. You can buy a plane ticket from a lot of different airlines. What fears are holding them back? Are they in the right place with the right financial means to actually go through? One of the analogies I use a lot is you never want someone, if you're selling Lamborghinis, you never want to have someone walk into your showroom that's looking for a $10,000 used Honda, because the best sales in the world still cannot sell that person a Lamborghini, right? Number one, it's not what they're looking for. Number two, they probably don't have the money for a Lamborghini. They wouldn't be there if they were looking for a $10,000 Honda, right? It's a mismatch. Sure, they definitely would love a Lamborghini, but that's not what they're there for. Even if they could afford the Lamborghini, they were still looking for a $10,000 Honda. And there's a reason why they were looking for that $10,000 Honda. Or another example, if we look at a $500,000 vehicle, now you could go buy a Lamborghini for a $500,000, or you could buy some farm machinery or construction machinery for a $500,000. So if you're coming in to looking to spend a $500,000, but it is to completely do landscaping over 100 acres of land you just bought, if I try to sell you a Lamborghini, you're not going to buy it because it's not what you need. It's not the tool you need, not the vehicle you need, even though it was the same amount of money. So the beginning part of a sales call is what I call the three P's: the perspective, perception, and the purpose. Now, what those are is when someone jumps on a sales call, there's lots of times you've been told that, hey, ask someone about the weather or do some research on them, find out what their sports team is, where they live, and do small talk. And everyone does this, and it doesn't build rapport. Think of it this way: if you're sitting at a bar, some guy sits down next to you, you're watching TV, the guy sits down next to you and goes, oh, hey, you here to watch this TV and learn about this? And you're not. You're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm interested in the game. But you're really not, right? Like you're just making small talk. Oh, cool. What, How long you been here? About 30 minutes. Cool. What are you doing the rest of the night? I'll be here for probably about 2 hours, gonna have dinner. Oh, okay, cool, cool. Hey, do you want to go back to my place and have sex? Nobody in their right mind is gonna do that. You don't build rapport through that. Now, if someone sits down to next to you and they start talking, and then all of a sudden goes, you know what? And this is a really stupid, nobody would say this, but I'm just want to do an example. I graduated from XYZ high school in 96. Oh my gosh, I was 95. There might be some connection there and you build rapport there. But that's not going to be done in 3 minutes of the call because you know nothing about this person, right? And so rapport is built through the conversation you continually have. Rapport is never built in a 2 to 3 minute question about superficial stuff in someone's world. And truthfully, when someone's asked you that, have you ever been like, oh my gosh, I feel really connected to this person? They asked me what my favorite restaurant in the town I live in. But I know that they don't care and they're never going to go. But oh my gosh, I'm so interested in them. No, not at all. So it's really wasting a bunch of time. It's also a bunch of small talk that makes people uncomfortable. The last thing you want in a sales conversation are people to feel comfortable. That is part of your goal too, is to get that person as comfortable as possible. Why? Number one, to be comfortable with you, to be comfortable to buy from you. The problem is with most sales calls, people aren't comfortable with the sales individual. Then you have to look at, do they trust you? But also, are they fearful of moving forward? And some sales calls and structures that people go through, they put people in such a negative way of thinking. It's actually a fight flight response. And in a fight flight response, most people can't think clearly. And therefore, at the end of the call, when you pitch them, they're so wrapped up in that fear, which is one of the biggest emotions sometimes you have to get to overcome if you are at the end of a call after price has been dropped. And if you put someone in that fear state, now you just have trying to get them out of it to make a decision. And you can take a 30-minute sales call that could have closed in 30 minutes or less into one that's a 90-minute one that they never buy from you because you got them in fight flight response mode and they don't even know if they up from down. And you probably lost a lot of sales that way and didn't even realize it. So at the beginning part of a sales call for me is number one, the perspective, number two, perception, and three, purpose. And so what are those? Perspective. What's a perspective of their situation and their perspective of the vehicle they're looking for? Are they looking for a car to drive across country, or are they looking at a plane to fly quickly across country? Those are two really, really important things to understand someone's world point of view of what they need. And too many people at the beginning of a call have no idea where a person's coming from. And then the sales call turns into an argument. And the reason why we need to know that too, because if someone has the wrong perspective of their situation, I need to have a conversation and make it look at something different. If not, I will drop my price, I will give them a proposal, and they will tell me no, and then I'm battling them. And as an example of this, which we all very well know, you've been on social media for a long time. Now, you probably have one political belief, and you probably know a lot of people that have a different political belief. How often are you coming together to actually solve problems together? Or do you just see people fighting nonstop and getting angry at each other and blocking people and unfriending people? That's based because their perspective and their worldview of their life situation. It was built off their whole experience, their beliefs, right? So if someone comes in and their worldview and beliefs are not the same as mine, I need to know that right off the bat. And it's not about politics or religion, right? That I need to know, but again, of their current situation. Why are they on the phone? Because their current situation has led them there. I need to know that and know the perspective of their current situation. Right. And here's kind of another example. Let's say you're out riding your bike tomorrow and you fall off your bike and you break your arm. I need to know that your arm's broken, right? To solve the problem. Now, if I tried to sell you a new tire in that moment, would you buy? No, you're looking for someone to fix your broken arm. So are you looking for a new tire or you're looking at fixing your broken arm, right? Those are two very different situations. If you're riding your bike and you pop a tire, okay, I need a new tire. But if you pop that tire and you fall and break an arm, same life situation, two different outcomes. I need to know your perspective of what you view that situation. And some people are hopping on sales calls because they have a flat tire, they don't want a broken arm. So they're just looking for options. That might be your ideal client, but it might not be an ideal time either because they haven't broken an arm yet. They might need to break an arm before they come in. Other individuals have a flat tire, they're scared of the broken arm, and they want to fix the problem so they don't break their arm. And that's an ideal client, but I still need to know their perspective. The next thing is perception. Their perception of why they're on the sales call, their perception of me from what attracted them to book on a call. Those are important things because if they think of me as their ideal solution, cool, that's a pretty powerful conversation. If they're unsure about what I do or if it's going to work for them, I need to know this worldview. So I need to know their perception of me as well. And then also the purpose. What is the purpose for them to be on this call? What are they looking for specifically? What are they looking to achieve? Now, the beautiful thing is when you ask people about these questions, it starts building rapport because you're actually interested in them. And people love talking about themselves. And so you can very quickly get someone talking about themselves and you can understand the problems they're in, what they feel like needs to be solved, and how they're trying to solve them and have and actually now have a conversation based on those. That very quickly builds rapport because I'm interested in you. Think about when you've had a hard time in your life and all of a sudden you started talking to a stranger or potentially even maybe a friend you know, and they sit and talk to you for 30 minutes about the problem you're having with your significant other, with your kids, with your job. And they spend 30 minutes and asking you questions like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Oh my gosh. And they're really thinking and listening to you. You have a very strong connection with them. 100%. You'll think about that person completely different. If it's 30 minutes into a conversation, 60 minutes in a conversation, the rest of your life, you're going to have a different perspective and connection way deeper with that individual. And doing that on sales calls, again, comes from asking questions through a conversation, not in the first 2 to 3 minutes of a call. I can get someone's perspective, perception, or purpose in that first 3 minutes as well. So, who's going to have a stronger call from beginning to end by starting with 3 minutes of mumbo jumbo that doesn't matter, or 3 minutes of starting that deep connection to where the rest of my conversation now is much deeper, much more personal, and much more detailed? Who's more likely to buy? Also, if a purchase doesn't happen at the end, who's more likely to come back and be in your pipeline and continue watching you? Who's the person that in 3 months from now will reach back out? Hey, Scott, I couldn't agree more. I loved our conversation we had last time. I really thought about it. The last 90 days has really shown a light on our conversation, and you were right. Let's work together. When can we talk? Compared to the person that was completely fluff, and 90 days later, they don't even remember your name. Yeah, talk to someone. I couldn't even tell you what their business was. I couldn't even tell you who. I have no idea, right? Which is why it's so important of going through a sales call and building rapport through it. But again, it all starts here at the beginning. Now, as an example, I'm going to pull this kind of up. If I'm starting with somebody, I'm not a person. There are people out there and there are offers that it can work, it does work, and there's salespeople that do it, but a hard frame at the very beginning. And so you might have gone through this before. So the first couple minutes, you kind of small talk, and then you go, "Hey, Jane Doe. So I just want to be respectful for your time over the next 45 minutes. And I'm going to I want to ask you questions about what problems you're having. I'll show you how to solve it. And at the end of the call, we'll discuss the best options going forward. And I'm looking for a yes or a no." Now, that's a really just general, but we've all been taught to have some sort of hard framework like that at the very beginning. But if we go back to what we were talking about earlier, if every salesperson has done that, is that actually putting you in the best place to win or not? That's your call. For me, it never puts me in the best position to win. I see my closing percentages go down drastically. Um, I can actually watch on video the difference if I do that to somebody and watch their body language and them actually lean back and potentially even cross their arms and get guarded. Like, okay, now we're getting sales mode. Okay, I need to be careful of what I say. I don't think that puts me in the best position to win. I don't like it, but yes, it can be used on some offers and it really highly depends. There are a lot of different ways to do sales. And sometimes if you're booking, as an example, if you have a business and you're booking 50 calls a day and you've got 5 salespeople taking those calls, sometimes you need a hard framework like that, right? It's a qualifier, disqualifier. But over 90% of the clients that I work with, that's not the case. You might be a solopreneur, you might have a salesperson or 3, and you're bringing in 4 to 10 calls a day or 4 to 10 calls a week. The people that are reaching out to you are looking for a much more personalized conversation, much more customized conversation, a much more real conversation. Not a business that's just pumping people through to let's see how many people we can get here and scale this as fast as possible. Even if there are people that are ideal fits and we push them weights, all right, we'll get in the long run, we'll end up closing 10% more deals by doing it this way. Cool, but that's not for everybody. And so finding out things that work for you. So when I start calls and you should have this whole framework that I have, but the introduction, I need to figure out their perspective, perception, and a purpose right off the bat. So a lot of my sales calls really start with, "Hey Jane, can you hear me all right? Awesome, cool. Hey, I'm really glad and I'm gonna give generic kind of based off what they hear. And I'm gonna give a tip here real quick too. Going through questions, like if we look at the, "Hey John, thanks for jumping on my schedule to chat with me to learn about how we outcome." Now that sounds very salesy, very robotic. And if you jumped on a call with me and said, "Hey John, thanks for jumping on my schedule to chat with me about how to learn how to um, automate your leads and double your profits in 90 days or less." Can I ask you what, right? Like that's pretty harsh. And so it's one of the things, again, I'm going to go back to earlier, is when you ask a question, where is it leading? Also understand how you ask a question is really important. And so one thing I tell all my clients to do is every single sentence, go down and write that sentence 10 different ways. Now, each one of those ways, what type of answers could you get? See where it leads and make things in your own verbiage, your own communication style. So if someone's jumping on a phone with me, "Hey John, thanks for jumping on the calendar, man. Really good to put an actual face and voice to the your social media profile. And what made you actually kind of jump and schedule a call with me to see if I could potentially help you with your business?" Now, depending what that question is, then I normally lead into, okay, cool, what materials and what stuck out about that, right? So I'm getting those questions. The reason why I'm asking them, I'm trying to get their perspective. What was their perspective to actually book a call with me? What's their perspective of the things that I've put out that they feel stick out to them? So someone might be like, "Whoa, well, you put this post out the other day. It was about this." Guess what that does? Give me a perspective of the problem. Cool. Hey, did you watch? Hey, and I watched this 8 minute video. Awesome. What did you like about that? Perspective of the things that stuck out are insights to their biggest problems, the biggest things they're trying to fix. And that's really, really important. And just on one question like that at the very beginning, or maybe two, I could continue asking questions deeper and deeper and deeper. And one thing, a lot of clients when I first start with them, they always have to remind them this first section, these aren't just simple questions just to move through really quickly and then try to figure out why someone's in so much pain and whatever, or whatever problem it may be. No, this opens all that up. These first two, three, four questions, just one of them, I could go and have an easy 15-minute conversation and keep diving deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And so that's one thing really to remember is as you're going through sales of listening, which is why sometimes scripts can totally mess up your sales process. Because if I'm sitting here and I read, so hey John, thanks for jumping on a schedule chat with me to learn how we help you XYZ and ABC. And now I'm reading the next question. Can I ask what about the webinar stuck out to what made you book a call with me? And I'm reading that in my head and thinking, okay, that's the next question. I don't even hear what you say. Oh, okay, cool. So can I ask you what about the webinar stuck out to you? And now I'm thinking, I sent you some homework. Did you watch any of those? That's the next question. And now I'm missing what you said about the webinar, and I don't really care. And I just go to that. Now they gave me a bunch of superficial fluff that I didn't really pay attention to. And so going into the next section where I'm trying to figure out about their past, present, and future, which we'll get into in next video, which I call the Dickinson's effect, which is based off Scrooge, which is really important. It's why Tony Robbins used it in Unleash His Power. You show somebody their past, you show them their current situation, you show them what their future looks like, and where does you want to go. And that's where Scrooge woke up and just said, I'm a changed man, right? And that's why it's really important to be able to have conversations. But I can't have those type of conversations if I don't know their perspective. But then their perception of me too, when I'm asking about things about what attracted them to me, I'm also getting their perception of what they feel. And so I can have full questions. Well, Scott, you put this post out about this the other day. Or, hey, yeah, that video you sent me, dude, that makes complete sense. Well, what about it made sense? Well, ABC, cool. Do you have that going on right now? And is your business operating that way right now? No, it's about 50% there. Well, why is it only 50% there? Well, because I'm missing this piece. Okay, cool. What you know so far, do you feel like I might be able to be the bridge to bring another 50%? I really do. Cool. Yeah, awesome. Well, I want to figure out if I am or not. Okay, cool. And so I can go really deep into those. And now I'm getting someone, again, their perspective and their perception. They've got a problem. Do they perceive themselves what that problem is? How do they perceive getting out of it? When do they want to get out of it? But then their perception of, hey, do they think I potentially have a solution? Do they know that my solution would work for them? Or are they just here to gather information? I can get all that information done within 5 minutes. Now, how much more powerful do you think the rest of my sales call is going to be with all that information? And then also, what's their purpose to be on the call? So instead of a hard frame, I have a much softer one. And depending on how this conversation's gone so far, depends on how I say this. And so I might be, cool, John, just so I help make sure that we use our time best here today, what were you hoping to get out of this conversation? Well, Scott, I was hoping to learn more because everything that you've told me, everything I've seen about you so far, I think you're exactly what I'm looking for. But I just want to make sure. So when I ask some questions, okay, cool. That's a great purpose of a call. Or it could be, so John, do you know what you're looking for specifically? Well, yeah, I'm looking for someone to help me with this. Yes, I'm here for to gather some more information because I'm talking to 3 other people and I want to see who's the best fit. I've been scammed a ton from a bunch of different programs that I've invested into, and none of them worked out. So I wanted to talk with you face to face because I want to ask you questions because I don't want to get burned again. Now, they might not say that, but you're going to get insights of potential, all of those different things. So, me asking one question of, hey, this next step, we go a direction. Tell me about your direction. Is it left, center, or right? So now, again, through this first 3 to 5 minutes of a call, I get their worldview. I get an understanding of what they feel like they're stuck with and why they're failing. Or if they have no idea, and I might need to have a conversation around that, their perception of how they view me and of the call. Again, all of this very first part now could be under three, could be 3 minutes, could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes, depending on something. I could lead that to 15 minutes before I move to the next section. But the reason why this first section, these first questions and frameworks are so important is, again, to where if they have beliefs of one political party, my beliefs are completely opposite, and I go into a conversation and I'm talking about my beliefs, is that person ever going to buy from me? No, not at all. That's why it's really important to get these key things out of the way. And so this section is one thing of really being able to role play this with my clients to really dial this in, because this is fundamental foundational stuff that sets up the rest of your sales call to be successful. And the beautiful thing is too, of this is why having materials and the correct materials to have somebody when they show up, have them have watched your content. They've maybe watched a VSL or a webinar. They've also watched pre-sale materials that was sent to them after booking a call. Because now when we put those pieces in place, because marketing is far more important than sales. Because that marketing is going to set up the sales call. So if they've watched me for a little bit or clicked on an ad, they've gone through something, they've also watched pre-sale materials. Now, these questions at the very beginning, they're very powerful because we're already helping them change their perspective towards, I am the answer. I'm giving them information. So their perception already is, yes, you have the answer. And therefore, we've already shifted the purpose from being on the call is not to gather information. It's not to waste an hour of time of anybody's time. But dude, I'm really here to cross T's, dot I's, and move forward with you depending on this conversation. And so that marketing really sets up this front part, which makes this front part super powerful. And the rest of the conversation now is well, let's have a conversation. Let's cross some T's, dots, some I's. And we'll get into other sections here, as you can see, of the Dickinson's effect, the commitment, the gap, and then get into the proposal and the objections. And objections, I don't call them objections. I call them carrying curiosity, because every objection is really just uncertainty, lack of clarity, lack of trust, potential fear. Something was missed from the first thing that they saw of you to where we are at this point. And the conversation didn't have a discussion around that. And so majority of objections are very easy to overcome at the end when you really get curious. You care enough about their situation to get curious about, if they tell you no, why. It's also being really good at objection handling, being comfortable to have those type of conversations is really important as well, because it helps you be able to have those conversations up front as well. So if I'm having a conversation through the Dickinson's effect section or the commitment section or dream and failure, and they say something that's a red flag to me of going, huh, that is going to be their objection. There's lots of times where I'm talking with someone, I'm like, well, what they just told me, that's essentially an objection. If I don't address it right here, and that's their perspective, right? They have a wrong perspective. Well, I can just do this on my own. That's a wrong perspective. Why would I continue the sales call, then give them a price? Because that's going to come up to an objection at the very end. I must have battle it there. Why not do I have that conversation, care enough about them, care enough about them making a commitment to change here today before I even handle the proposal? And it's one thing over 20 years in fitness where every single sales program, you're asking something to do something they hate, which is workout. You ask them to do something they hate, which is give up the foods they love. You ask them to do something they hate, which they feel it's going to take more time. They don't have the time in the day to work out. They don't have the time to cook, don't know how to cook. There's too much there. And also, I'm going to pay you to do all those things I hate. Right? There's a lot of reasons to say no. There's a lot of reasons to say no to everyone's offer. And so if I'm during this conversation, their perspective of their situation and how to solve it, if it's not right to that purpose of them being in the call, which is solving their problem, I need to have Bill care enough about them to dive into why that might be. That happens why lots of times in the commitment section, people are very wish-washy unless you have a conversation about and around it and them saying, no, I'm committed to this. This is the day I made this decision. This is why I'm making the decision. And we anchor that emotion. But again, it's hard to get these really deep, very specific, because at the very beginning of the call, there was no connection. We didn't build any foundation or anything. We haven't earned the right from them to ask them harder questions, more specific, straightforward questions, or to show them the mirror of like, hey, you see yourself, you're the problem. Do you agree with that? Yes, I'm the problem. Why are you the problem? But in a correct way where they're all of a sudden their perspective goes into a light bulb moment of going, huh, I am the problem here, Scott. Yeah, 100%. I agree. Now, that's a very powerful position to be in. Why is that? Because every decision that you've made has led you to this point. Now, that might suck to hear that you're the reason behind all of it, but this also greatly empowers you knowing you can make new decisions going forward, therefore get a different result. So let me ask you, John, when was the day that you kind of drew the line in the sand and said, hey, I need to do something different? Well, hey, Scott, 2 weeks ago, this happened. Okay, cool. Now we're anchoring in that story, that message, but we weren't able to do that without this front part. And so we'll go through the further videos and dive into this. So this 3Ps part is why role playing this over and over. So it's very smooth because we all jump on sales calls. And one thing I want you to really think about, whether you're a client of mine or not, the first part of a sales call, you're anxious, you're high energy, you're awkward. If you go back and listen to your calls, you'll realize your whole energy, your whole persona, your whole communication, verbal and nonverbal, is one of, I don't want to be around this person. You're right. It's like, oh, we're all uncomfortable. No, you need to be completely comfortable right when the camera comes on or the person answers the phone, and to be that solid rock the whole time. And so it's one thing to really practice at the moment someone jumps on a sales call with you. Are you already in this position, or are you all anxious beforehand? Right? Which is really important too. So making sure you nail this front part. There's a lot of little details that are major levers, that are major game changers to make sure you're successful. So hope this video helps. And again, we'll go through the next steps here going forward piece by piece. And the one thing again of when you're looking at understanding, taking someone through a sales process, I have those listed out. Now, during a call, someone might bring something up. I might have to have a conversation about something way back here, way up front. Could be money as an example. A lot of people, they get, well, how much is this at the very beginning? Again, that's if you can't handle the objections, you're gonna fall apart with that. I see it way too often. Someone asks about money right away, and people are like, well, I'm because you're told that, hey, giving someone a price, but they don't understand the value yet, they'll never buy. And you haven't given a proposal, so they don't understand the value yet. Well, a person showing up on a call, number one, values their time. They should have a general understanding, which also is why the three P's are so important. But also, again, why I don't call objection handling, I call it carrying curiosity. So if someone at the very beginning goes, well, how much is it? I need to get curious about why they're asking that question in the first 10 minutes of a call. John, just to make sure I answer this correctly, why are you bringing this up right now in the discussion? Just so I can be answer this crystal clearly for you. Because if we try to run and avoid from pricing, that person is not going to tell us real answers because you avoided it. Therefore, they don't trust you. Therefore, they're going to respond the exact same way. And that's a big thing when you're looking at sales calls and leadership. People follow leaders. You get around a leader, you change, you act different. Being a leader on a sales call, you can get people to act different. If someone asks you the price and you don't tell them and you dance around it, now, when I ask them a question, why would I expect them to be honest with me? I wouldn't. I'd expect them to mimic my behavior and how I've treated them to not tell me the truth now. So, how likely is that sales to happen at the end? Right. So, that's the other part of why the front is so important of how you immediately showcase yourself to somebody, how you immediately communicate with somebody, and also these first questions at the very beginning because now if it does come up, something from near the back end comes up right off the bat, I can get really curious and ask questions like that to get a better understanding of actually, well, what's behind the question? You should always be thinking on the sales call. If they're asking you a question, what's behind that? That should be your very first, that's curious, right? Rather than just dance around it or maybe giving them an answer that's not even what they're looking for. Now, the other thing, when it comes down to details of asking questions, again, where is it leading, right? If so, if someone's asking a question, well, where are they trying to lead the conversation? What are they trying to figure out? Which is why I have to get curious around all of those details. And it's not always just money, it could be a lot of different things, but also why, if you're trying to read off a script, you can never listen to somebody. Because if I'm listening to someone's answer and I don't like the answer that they're giving, I have to get curious about that. Hey, John, you just said something really interesting. You said ABC. What did you mean by that? Or what's behind that thought process? Why do you feel that way? Right? All three of those questions are asking the same thing. Depending on the conversation I'm talking with, I'm going to change the verbiage of it to get to the answer that I want, which is okay, if you're thinking completely wrong, if that person's thinking completely wrong in their thinking, going towards trying to solve their problem, I need to stop and have that conversation here. And it might lead into a question or a framework later on. And I need to know how to be able to bring that to that point, but also stop it not to go too deep. Because if we do jump kind of the process, you can sometimes get the conversation out of alignment. And now, way back here, they got emotionally attached. Now, way here, they're logically, and they've lost that emotional attachment. Everyone buys, I believe, based off of really an emotion. And then we justify with logic. We all hear that in sales, and I do agree with that statement as well. So, those things are really important, which is why having these process and frameworks and steps in place and having each one really dialed in to where, because in case you need to jump to one, you can touch the first part of it and then jump out. But now when we get back to it, we're starting at a deeper level anyway, at a more clear perspective, which can sometimes be even more powerful. So hope all that helps, and we will talk to you guys soon.